Hi, my name is Justin. I am from the United States. I am a man and I speak English. We are from different countries. We speak different languages. We are of different cultures, but Fedora unites us with open source. We are Fedora. Mentors in Fedora over the years, but one memory that always stands out to me is one of the earliest experiences I had in Fedora. And it really wasn't as much of like a sustained or extended mentorship as much as it was guiding me or making me feel welcome in this community that still felt really new and still different to me. So the first time I really met the Fedora community, at the time I was just a user. This was in 2015. And I was a high school. I had just graduated from high school and was moving into my university in Rochester. And as it so happened, the Fedora Contributor Conference in 2015 was located in Rochester, where I was moving for school. So I ended up deciding to move up a week or two early than my move-in date and came out for the Fedora Flock conference, even though this was a city I had never been to before. I had didn't know anybody, and all I knew is that I used Fedora, and a bunch of these Fedora contributors were going to be there. So I showed up, just being hanging out in IRC channels really, and just kind of being out on the edges of a few mailing lists. And I had someone who Pete Travis, or I think random user, or I forget his fast account name, but Pete Travis was one of the folks that I remember that I met during one of the first couple of days of the conference. And even though there were some professors and students and faculty that I had emailed and messaged that I knew were there, I still didn't really know anybody yet. And uh, I ended up at one point, I remember there was a time where after I left one of the talks, maybe it was the keynote from Matthew, I can't remember, but I was just kind of on my own after that and didn't really have anyone. Everyone had kind of broken off into different small groups and uh, was talking with each other. And I was just kind of off on my own. I was really shy. I'm an introvert. So, but I just remember Pete came up to me and just started talking to me and asked about why I was here, or like a little bit about me and how I had ended up here and some of the things I was interested in. And I ended up kind of giving him, because at this time I was doing a lot in the Minecraft open source community. So I ended up kind of giving this long idea or this dream that I had for Fedora to be part of the better reach into the gaming open source gaming community. And at the time, I was it was very aspirational, but he humored me and listened to me and gave me some feedback, and then also helped me better understand a little bit more on who the community was and uh, who this community really was. And it was my first time. It was in that moment that I really felt like I felt that power of community with Fedora. And so he kind of taught me just that sometimes the easiest thing is just to break out of that little social bubble and reach out to someone and open up. 2015, I was an outsider, and there was a whole year of time that went after that where I started to actually become more of a contributor and get involved in the community. And so it was Flock 2016, really. Actually, maybe I had gotten to actually meet and work with these people for so long in the community. And it was such a different experience coming to that second conference after having worked online and so many IRC meetings. And I was getting involved with the Fedora magazine. And so I just remember that experience of getting off the airplane and Raphael, I can't remember his surname, but this was the year that Flock 2016 was in Krakow in Poland. And this was my first time really going out into Europe or really traveling. I had done, or traveling into a country where I didn't know the language. That's the better way of putting it. And uh, he was this really welcoming person who helped guide me and meet us at the airport. And I met up with Ryan Lurch and uh, Bhagyashree Padalkar and a couple of other folks at the airport, and it was just such an experience. Like, oh, I know you're IRC Nick, and I know you're this person, and connecting the Nicks to the faces, and it was that first time experience that I got to actually really meet these people in a way where now I wasn't this just outsider who was just like observing or kind of, you know, learning more about the community, but now I really felt a part of it. And so that was, I think, a huge changing point for me where I got to map some of these names to faces. Was probably when I was in high school, actually. And at this point, I was nowhere near contributing, but it was in my senior class in 12th grade. And we were doing a end of year project for career research. And at that point, I had been running a Minecraft game server for some time, and I had been experimenting with Linux and CentOS and running a Minecraft game server from the command line and doing these kinds of things. So for this class, we were doing like a career research, and I knew that I was interested in networking and systems administration. So for me, I ended up having this really old netbook that was this 1 gigabyte of RAM, tiny 9 or 10 inch screen, and what I did for like kind of the end of final project for this course was we were doing some kind of presentation on what the work was, or maybe doing an interview with someone. So what I ended up doing was I put Fedora on this tiny netbook and printed out a Fedora logo, the old one, and had these fancy scissors to rim around it. I super glued this polished Fedora homemade sticker, I guess, onto the front of the netbook cover. And what I did in the class was I did a live demo of running like an Apache web server just with like a hello world HTML page. But I like showed like, oh, here's how I start the service, and here's how like this file like you're seeing is actually running from my computer, and someone else in the classroom could open it up. And that was just like, it was wild to people. And I guess there was a part of me that wondered, like, does anyone really understand what I'm like, what's going on? But then there was another part of me that's like, I guess this is pretty cool. No one really, at least in that class, it was like an English class, so I wasn't really with a ton of other people who were deep into tech. So it was kind of this moment for me where I was like, this is really cool, and I got to nerd out in this way about, this is something I really enjoy and I wanted to explore more. So that was my aha. In 21, both for nostalgia, but also the beginning of Fedora editions in 21. But Fedora 20 was my first Fedora release, and also the last Fedora release to have a name. I didn't realize it at the time, but when I got my first laptop, I got it in December 2013. I guess that was the month that Fedora 20 had finally launched. And so I ended up using Fedora 20 as my first like laptop Linux distribution, uh, like the week that it was released, unintentionally, but it worked out that way. So I've got a soft spot for Fedora 20 and maybe the very last Heisenbug release name for the releases before we switched to just numbering. But I also have some appreciation for Fedora 21 because that was a really distinct moment for Fedora and how we diversified our flavors into, instead of just this monolithic Linux distribution, we had additions of workstation, server, at the time, cloud. And it's just cool to me to see how that's actually helped the project grow a lot over the years and help us better understand like who is our audience and who can we best help by tailoring or customizing what we're offering out to people. So 20 and 21, it's got my soft spot.